Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Political Science 135, Political Behavior Around the World. I am Colin Grimes. I am your professor for this class. I'm so happy that you're here with us this afternoon, although it is evening for me. Um, really excited to get started. This is a great topic and an exciting class. We're going to be studying the political behavior of voters as well as parties. And in this class, we'll be doing that comparatively. So we'll approach these issues kind of thematically in the sense that we look at regions throughout the world, countries throughout the world. So we're really interested in political behavior on a comparative scale. We'll begin with issues and research questions in comparative political behavior, but we'll gradually begin to move out in the direction of studies that take into consideration different country experiences, that study a wide number of countries in different regions. The course is going to be sort of influenced by a lot of the knowledge from American political behavior because that's the way that the comparative literature evolved. But it really is a comparative class. So if you're interested in comparative politics or if you just want to learn more about it, this will be a really useful class in that regard. Now, I'm really excited to be here with you. We won't get into any substantive content tonight. Instead, excuse me, this afternoon. I'll talk a little bit more about myself later and why I keep saying tonight. Um, but what we will do is discuss some of the expectations for the course. We'll go over the syllabus. We'll talk about the different perspectives and the different issues that we address in the course. We'll go over the schedule. And I did drop the syllabus in the chat on Zoom. So if you haven't found your way to the chat yet to download that PDF, please do that right now. I'll also put a copy on CAT courses where you can, of course, download it. This is version 1. It's possible that we might make some changes along the way. So we will adapt if something happens or something comes up. But as far as I can tell, this is the schedule that we'll begin with and work with for this semester. So let's just begin talking about some of the basics for the course so that you have a better understanding of where we're headed and what we begin with. Just as a note, I do record all of the lectures, and I do that so that I can upload them later to the web so that you can review them or watch them. Some students aren't able to attend the lectures because of work or family circumstances. There's always the option of reviewing the lecture later, and so that's why I do that. But this is being recorded, and I do try to ritually upload those videos, although sometimes it takes me a couple days to upload them because of how long it can take. In any event, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and that way we can all see what I'm looking at. I do hope that you've gone ahead and downloaded the syllabus. Before we discuss this, let me take a look at the chat. There's quite a bit of activity here. Okay. Okay, great. Looks like we're on the same page. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen and we'll just discuss the syllabus and some of the basics for the course. So this course will meet on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 2:30 to 3:20 p.m. All the meetings will be live, so synchronous, as they say. We'll always tune in at this time, and the invitation link for the meeting will always be on announcements in CAT courses. And if for whatever reason the invitation link doesn't work for you, you can also search my name in Zoom and it'll bring up any active meetings that I have going, and you can actually access the meeting that way. Sometimes, in some cases, students have a difficult time using the link, and they'll email me at the beginning of class, and I can't answer the email because I'm hosting the meeting. So if this does happen to you ever, just keep in mind that you can actually join the meeting through a search on Zoom if you just search my name. But we will meet at this time, and I'll always record the lecture so that you can review it later. I also upload the slides, the presentation from the lecture itself. So you have access to all that content, and I encourage you to use it, as well as the readings, of course, and we'll discuss that too. So you can reach me at this email here. You can also reach me through Cat Courses, the inbox function. If you just type in my name, you can also message me. I guess what I meant to say is you can also chat with me privately here in the class if you want, or stay with me after class and address whatever issue or question you'd like to discuss. Of course, I have office hours too on Wednesday and Friday from 3:30 to 5 p.m. And that's basically right after this class. And you can, of course, walk right in, or you can make an appointment if you want. If you want to try to set aside a time outside of those office hours, we can do that too. Just let me know, and I'd be happy to set something up. I anticipate that we'll have a lot of interest in the course, and it's very likely that we'll have a lot of activity. And I look forward to that because it's always good to be able to just sort of take the party elsewhere once the class ends. But I will be posting the invitation link for office hours here shortly when class is over, and you can always find those links on announcements, just like you can the links for the individual class meetings. So this course is about the political behavior of voters and parties. And really traditionally we focus on voters and their particular choices when they go, if they choose to go to the polls at all. We talk about accountability and how they hold politicians accountable. But parties are also important, and the behavior of parties matters a great deal because they're responding to pressures in the political environment in the same way that voters try to exert pressure on those parties themselves. So we'll talk about parties and voters in this class, and that gets us into a lot of really interesting terrain. It covers a lot of the most important topics in comparative political behavior, but it also gives us a chance to think um, in a more creative way about the relationships between parties and voters, as opposed to just the behavior of voters or parties. So the first half will be devoted to voters. We'll talk about voter behavior and voter choice. We'll also talk about voter turnout. And the second half, or the third, I guess third, if you will be devoted to the parties. And we'll talk about party behavior in terms of their issue framing, their responsiveness to voters, and so on and so forth. And as I said, the course is explicitly thematic. We really focus on perspectives, issues, and questions from the vantage point of the analysis of comparative political behavior. We then focus on cases to kind of illuminate those thematic issues. We don't focus on cases first, which is sometimes how it's done. So we'll always begin presentations and discussions with an analysis of the theoretical and the conceptual content that we'll eventually use to explore some of those country experiences and regional experiences. Now, that being said, we'll cover material from everywhere in the world. And my particular, I guess, bias is to focus on developing countries and developing democracies. Now, we'll learn a lot from advanced democracies too, but oftentimes developing democracies are more interesting because there's a lot more that's changing from election to election, and you can view a lot of the adaptations of voters and parties in real time, whereas in more advanced democracies, things are often more ossified and stable, and it's more difficult to tease out some of the nuances of the behavior of the actors. And so we'll be taking a look at a lot of different experiences, but we'll be really focusing a lot on developing countries and newer democracies. And so that gets us into Africa and Latin America, East Asia. We will, of course, cover some of the advanced democracies, but we'll cover a wide range of experiences. And that gives you an opportunity to kind of figure out what interests you. Is there a particular region that is most interesting to you or that you would want to study? What issues that affect all countries are most interesting to you? Now, in this, the course objectives are pretty straightforward and relatively simple. Now, the course being about comparative comparative political behavior. I almost said comparative political economy, which I also teach. Being about political behavior, we want to describe and analyze the key questions, theories, findings that concern political behavior around the world. And this is the comparative perspective, right? Those comparative insights that come from studying all regions of the world as opposed to just the United States. So there is that emphasis on examining behavior comparatively and from the perspective of all experiences as opposed to just the United States. Secondly, we want to describe and critically assess the newest research in comparative political behavior. You'll see that in our coverage of the readings and the topics in the course, we do our best to take on the newest insights and the newest ideas. And we want to both describe those ideas, but also engage them critically and think about them, and attack them or defend them or illustrate them or critique them. And all of the above is relevant to what we'll do in the course. And so that's one of the objectives. And then finally, the third objective is we want to situate ourselves to conduct basic but rigorous political science research on comparative political behavior. And so this means thinking about research design and method, cases, theoretical approach and hypothesis, sources of data. And to this end, in the course, one assignment that you will complete is a research design. And that will be intended to satisfy that third objective. But together, the course will really focus on developing your critical thinking skills and develop skills that you can take with you to new courses that really reach beyond just comparative political behavior. Now, many of you undoubtedly have an interest in this topic. And I'm so excited about that because we're bound to have some really invigorating discussions, and I want to learn from you as you bring in your insights and your interests. And so this might be the beginning of your own study of comparative political behavior, or maybe this is not the beginning, but maybe you're in the middle of your study, and this is how you're going to refine your interest. These are all opportunities that we have in the course, and so I look forward to everything that you can take from this. And the research design is going to be a unique chance to kind of get started and put your foot in the water and get ready to conduct the research that you would conduct. Now, that being said, as I'll talk about, we're under a pandemic and we're all facing very difficult circumstances. And so it's not possible for us to do everything that we might have done in class in person. And so as much as possible, we will accomplish the objectives that we would have set out to accomplish, but there might be some abbreviating, so to speak, maybe a little less reading, maybe a little less writing, but in general, the objectives remain the same, and we tailor our experience as much as possible to the circumstances of the day. So this course is online, as we've established. You will use Zoom, and if you're here already, congratulations, you made it. If not, and you see this later, and you had a difficult time getting into the meeting, maybe contact me. But as a reminder, you can also usually access these meetings through a search of my name at the same time that the meeting should be beginning. And it will often pop up, and you can use that too. But those invitations will always be available on announcements. These meetings are live, and so this is something that's being recorded and will be posted later. This is virtual, and so what that means then is even if you review this later, you're always going to be in better shape if you can attend the class and comment and ask questions and analyze and engage with your classmates. Because so many of you have this interest in this class, you really have a good opportunity to learn from each other and to share information and insights. And if you're not in class, it's not possible to do that, at least to the same extent. And so please, make every effort to be here for the live meetings. And of course, you can also use the content later and review the lectures later if you choose to. So to be here for the meetings, you need to have access to a personal or an off-campus computer. If this is a challenge, maybe just try to reserve one as much as possible where you are, either at home, if you're going to a library, or if you're going somewhere to access the computer. I would make every effort to be able to access the lecture and to participate. Some folks are able to use their phone. That's also acceptable. However you are able to tune in, just try to do so and try to be a part of it. Now, if you're using a computer, you'll probably want to get the software or the operating system for Zoom, or the software. the desktop stuff. You can use your browser, but if your internet connection is unstable, it might not work as well. I think this is something that many of you have probably already tinkered with since we had this situation last semester, but there may be some new students, and what I would encourage you to do is just try to set up the Zoom on your desktop so that you can use it as smoothly as possible. I just open the invitation link in announcements to join the meeting. If you're here now, you've done that already. I won't be emailing the links. I don't typically do that. I did this occasion because I wanted to say hello and welcome you, and welcome, by the way. We'll do more of that here in a moment. But ordinarily, I'll just post the link in announcements, and you can find that, before class. I do my best to have it up, well in advance, but sometimes time is limited. I always assure you though that it'll be up in advance of class, and I try to give you at a bare minimum at least an hour. But you'll always find it there, and we'll always meet here at the same time. Office hours, of course, I encourage you to use. These are great opportunities to come and talk to me about whatever, this the class or whatever interests you have. Politics, there's a lot going on in the world, and sometimes it's a good chance to just kind of shoot the breeze with your instructor to go to office hours and see what's up. And I would love that. So just come on by. There are no required textbooks for this course. I provide everything, and I'm uploading everything to Cat Courses. I've uploaded the reading for Friday, and you'll find that under readings, the file folder under files. But I'm still sort of populating the folder and adding readings. And within the next week or so, I should have the remainder of the readings for the semester up. Although there might still be a few that I take a minute to get up because I'm sort of waiting on some of them. But make or don't worry about it. I'll have everything up, and we'll have everything up probably within a week. But I did choose to just give you selections and upload them myself because, in my opinion, a textbook gets very dry very quickly, and you've got to sign on to the viewpoint of the author in every single chapter over and over. And that really denies us exposure to the creativity and the insights of different voices and different viewpoints. And so we'll do a lot of different types of readings in this course, and you'll see a lot of different kinds of content, although it all is comparative political behavior. Now, in terms of the grading and the evaluation for the course, you'll have a response paper first. Second, you'll have a research design. And then third, you'll have a midterm and a final. And what I've tried to do is put together a set of assignments that gives you a range of different opportunities to think creatively and engage with the themes from the course without becoming too redundant. And I didn't want this to be too writing heavy. I was focused on giving you some different types of assignments that together would work together to give you a set of skills or sharpen a set of skills that really you can take with you well beyond the course. So the first assignment is a response paper. This is basically just a critique of the readings, a 5-page paper, 20% of the grade. It's an analytic response where you synthesize the readings by focusing on a single issue, debate, or concept. You can focus on whatever question you want, as long as you develop an argument and ground it in theory and evidence from the readings in the course. You don't need to include all the readings, but you cannot just focus on one. And this is designed to get you thinking creatively but critically and analytically about those big issues and those big items or questions in the course. And that sets the stage for the research design, which is a little bit longer, about 8 to 10 double-spaced pages. This, though, is a little bit more compartmentalized. It's focused on giving you a chance to focus on a question that of interest to you, and then design a project for how to study it. So you'll want to kind of create this in the image of a empirical journal article or a conference paper, like something that you would maybe write or do once the class is over in your own line of work to develop your own interest. And you want to have a research question, a brief literature review, a hypothesis. You want to discuss the research method, the variables, the cases, and then where you might get the data. And if you want, you can even do some preliminary analysis, but this is not required. It's not required. And I don't expect many of you to have the time or the data or maybe even the software to do some of this. But that's why it's a research design. And it doesn't need to be your master's thesis or your dissertation. It's just something that we put together to kind of think about how to systematically and rigorously analyze a question that we might want to do later, either as part of our graduate work or as part of some research project, or maybe just part of our own personal interest. And so this is a chance for you as an individual to really think about what interests you and what you would do if you had the time and the data and maybe the software and et cetera to do this. And I say software because, as you'll see, in this literature, virtually all of the work is statistical, and so it's using regression analysis and various tools to study these questions statistically. And that's not something we'll do in the course, because that really is something that might deserve its own course. And so when you do your research design, you might think about data, but that might be one component of it that's a little bit less developed than, say, the literature review or the hypothesis or the variables, for example. But this is 30% of the course grade, and this will work along with the response paper, but it will be distinct and a little bit different. Now, we do have two exams, a midterm and a final. These exams are going to be a little bit different than what I've done in the past, for those of you who've had me before. It'll consist of a combination of multiple choice and short answer questions. And my focus here is really to give you succinct and concise exercise or prompts or short questions that could be done in a time frame of 50 minutes. We have a short class, and in-class exams or during class exams are going to be a challenging endeavor for all of us, both for me to create one that's feasible and frankly for you to complete it. I'm aware of this. I'm very aware of that. And so I want to give you an exam or two exams that reflect some of those limits. And so we'll have a set of multiple choice questions and then some short answer questions. And again, these will be drawn from the readings and the lectures in the course. But I'm not going to overwhelm you with writing or things that would require extensive long form response. Now, in terms of the writing assignments, the guidelines are straightforward. I just require that you type them and paginate them and double space them, use Times New Roman, 12-point font, 1-inch margins, cite the sources you use. You can use whatever citation style you wish to use, MLA, Chicago, APA, whatever, as long as you're consistent, right? And you follow a convention. If you're disciplined, anything is fine with me. I personally like Chicago because I like to see where the information is coming from as I'm reading. I like to see the sources because I use historical methods in my own research, but that's just my preference. And, for you, APA might make more sense, whatever, as long as you're consistent, that's fine. Regarding late work, realistically, we're under a pandemic, and I'm aware that we're facing circumstances none of us have ever faced before. Some of us are taking care of family. Many of us are working jobs, multiple jobs. Emergencies are happening more frequently and commonly. There are a lot of limitations that we cannot anticipate. I'm a flexible person, and I'm very, very conscientious of those limits that we're working under. I will be flexible, but I require you to do your very best to finish things on time and to only ask for an extension if you have an emergency. And here's the thing that I've discovered: as flexible as I can be, I think the disadvantage for students is that sometimes there's a loss of accountability that they don't anticipate. It's true, we're under a lot of difficult circumstances, but it falls upon you to follow through and finish something if an emergency prevents you from finishing it. I cannot bring you to finish it if you blow past the deadline, but get an extension because of an emergency. I'm very empathetic and I want to support you, but just be conscientious of how things can get out of hand if the deadline slips away and we're not on top of it, because the semester moves very quickly. And, if we miss a couple days, it could be in the rearview mirror before we know it. So just be disciplined. And my objective above all is for you to finish the course and to to take away important lessons and to sharpen your critical thinking skills and your reading and writing and your ability to articulate your ideas. Those are things that we can do, but you have to be disciplined and really focus on completing the course and being effective in the course. And so we have to meet in the middle, even as we acknowledge some of the limitations here. Now, if you're a student with special needs or who needs accommodations, please contact me right away, and we'll work with services for students with disabilities to make sure that everything is set up. Just contact me immediately so I know what you need as we prepare for the evaluations and the assignments and whatnot in the course. So what we're going to do for the rest of this meeting is I'll briefly discuss the course outline and the expectations and sort of the content of each unit. And in turn, I will sort of briefly introduce myself and talk a little bit about my background and my interests. And I hope to eventually hear from, as many of you as possible, or who might feel comfortable speaking about maybe your interests or your background. So let's just discuss briefly the course outline. After class today, I just want you to review the syllabus, which hopefully you've downloaded already from the chat. On Friday, we'll begin our first unit, which is on voter behavior. And we begin broadly by focusing on research questions in comparative political behavior. This is a reading by Dalton and Klingenman, which I've already posted. You'll find that under the readings folder on CAD courses. And then next week, we really begin to analyze the role of voter behavior in the way that voters behave and how they hold politicians accountable and how partisanship and information become relevant factors in this process. And so first and foremost, we focus on economic voting and how economic considerations influence the choices that voters make at the polls. In turn, we focus on partisanship and how political party affiliation becomes a relevant factor and how voters hold politicians accountable by voting on the basis of their partisanship. We'll turn our attention then to information and the role of information in affecting the choices made by voters and how an abundance or a lack of information can affect the ability of voters, to hold politicians accountable. You'll notice a consistent theme here, which is that when we talk about comparative political behavior of voters, what kind of behavior? Well, voting behavior, but to what end? And it has to do with accountability and the way that their behavior becomes important in politics, the survival or the defeat of parties or politicians, and so on and so forth. All of these are different models that fall under this rubric of voter behavior and different models of voter behavior. You'll notice that these articles focus on different regions, from Brazil to Kenya and other places. And the whole point, as I mentioned, is to really give you a range of different experiences so that we can see really in a truly comparative way how political behavior works in different places in the world. This will bring us to the next topic, which is clientelism and how patron-client relationships between voters and parties and politicians can influence voter behavior. And that gets us into a discussion and a study of Mexico, which is an important case, along with Argentina and other Latin American countries, in the study of clientelism and voter behavior. Elite capture and influence is our next topic, and that gets us to Chile, where a very, very, very narrow portion of the elite controls much of the land and much of the capital, and historically has had a great deal of influence politically because of their capacity to create costs for politicians. That's what we refer to as elite capture. And the influence of elites is one component of voter behavior and political behavior. And so we'll focus on that. That gets us to the midterm exam on March 5th, which is our first evaluation. The second outcome of interest for us is voter turnout. And this takes us from voter choice to sort of voter mobilization, or to what extent voters vote in mass or come out to the polls, choose to even vote at all, regardless of what their choices are. And so we'll focus on turnout in advanced democracies, but also in developing countries. And so we'll examine the two in separate weeks, and we'll sort of use a similar set of approaches to try to understand the similarities and the differences. The article from 1987 by Jackman in particular is interesting because it focuses on some of the institutions that are more common in more developed and advanced democracies and how they become relevant. In the study of Latin America from this subsequent week, we'll focus on a broader set of conditions, but the comparative focus that we bring to the course is what helps to illuminate some of the differences between the regions and between the types of countries. Of course, we then have a nice long break, spring break, and then the Cesar Chavez holiday. The third outcome that we'll address once we return from the break is non-electoral participation, which takes the form of riots and protests and all sorts of other ways of participating in politics besides going to the polls on election day. And so we'll begin with a reading by Taro, who talks about social movements and collective action in politics. And on April 2nd, which is Friday of that week, the response paper will be due. The next week, we'll focus on protests, riots, and rebellion by studying ethnic riots in India, where we'll take a look at why some ethnic riots were suppressed and others were not. And we'll focus in particular on the influence and the strength and the leverage that particular ethnic minorities have under certain circumstances, and how these non-electoral forms of participation relate to levels of violence in ethnic riots. Very interesting stuff. Gets us into some of those issues that are more common in developing countries. But of course, here in the United States, riots are increasingly common, amazingly. But this is certainly something that we'll study in the context of India, and we may even discuss it in a larger context. Part 2 of the course, focusing on party behavior, gets us into the roles and the functions of parties. Eventually, we focus on party-voter linkages and how parties are connected to voters in the ways those linkages evolve and the forms they take. We'll focus on the responsiveness of parties to voters. And then finally, after turning in our research designs on April 30th, we'll focus on issue ownership campaigns and appeals and how parties become entrepreneurs for particular issues under certain circumstances, and how they appeal to voters in a particular way under certain circumstances. Now, the final exam is on May 12th from 8 to 11, and that's in class, as is the midterm. And this does sort of conclude my overview of the course outline. Before I say a few comments about myself, let me take a look at the chat. We've got a little bit of activity here. Yeah, no sign-in passcode was a great move. I agree. It's like it would be sort of interesting if someone would crash the meeting and maybe I guess hack the meeting, but I don't think anyone would think my course is important enough to do that. Although, who knows? I think maybe some of you have seen, there's some really funny footage out there of people hacking Zoom meetings, like classes, just really good stuff. If you haven't seen that, you should check it out. Yes, Claudia. So Claudia asks, this is a good question. Just want to clarify, the readings listed under each class need to be read by that class? No, so they need to be read by that class. Thank you for asking. I should clarify that whenever we come to class prepared with notes or responses to or having read that reading that's associated with that meeting. And so the lecture will sort of illuminate much of the content from the reading, but it won't be the same, and we'll sort of dovetail, but the reading and the lecture will always work together, and you always want to read the reading beforehand. And of course, you'll want to review the reading later, inevitably, but do your best to review it and read it beforehand. Christopher asks, will we be covering anything from Germany? Oh, I'm sure we will. We'll cover a lot of material in a lot of different country experiences. Germany will come up as a case in some of the papers. Much of these papers, many of these papers are statistical, and so they deal with a lot of different countries. I don't know if we'll ever have any case studies that deal with Germany, but I don't know, because I have to wait and see. I admit that I don't have all of the material prepared yet for all of the individual lectures, and so we'll see if Germany becomes relevant. There are two Christopher Morenos. Wow. Well, there you go. I'll have to find a way to try to distinguish between the two. Um, that's an interesting conundrum. Virginia asks, will participation be considered in our grades? No, it won't. And the reason is because it is a lecture and there isn't a discussion section component. And so while I do strongly encourage, if not require you essentially to come to lecture, I don't actually grade you for that. But I assure you that coming to lecture will strengthen your ability to do well in the course. You'll be in much better shape if you come to lecture. And really theoretically, if you're reviewing the lectures later and you're able to come to lecture, you might be better off coming to lecture and getting it all done. But no, it's not part of the grade. Yeah, so parties are different in Germany. The German situation is unique, and in behavior in Germany uh, is also associated with unions and all sorts of other corporatist groups who are like employers associations who are part of the decision-making process in addition to parties, although in different domains of social life. But Germany is an interesting situation. Will there be study guides provided for the exams at all? Yeah, there will be. Okay, let's see. So that does conclude just sort of like the administrative component. I did want to just sort of chill out and introduce myself and say hello. Um, so I'm Colin, and I'm a lecturer in political science here at UC Merced. I started in August, and I cover comparative politics, democracy and democratization, political economy, development, and Latin America is sort of my regional expertise. So I received my PhD in September 2019 from UC Riverside. It seems like it was forever ago, but it was really just 2019. And last year, I was a visiting assistant professor at Skidmore College, which is a private liberal arts college in upstate New York. And it was a very interesting experience for me because I'm from like rural Nebraska and I went to a small state university, and I was very fortunate to work as a research assistant with some great scholars. And eventually I made my way to UCR. But Skidmore was a very interesting and new environment, and I enjoyed it there. But I was hired at UC Merced in May, so a few months into the pandemic, after my 1 year appointment at Skidmore ended. And I was fortunate to get hired at UC Merced. And I like it here very much, but I do still live in New York because when I was hired and over the summer, things were so unsafe and it was so difficult to even move or go anywhere that I stayed here, just sort of waiting things out. And then, it was announced that this spring would also be online. And so, this is a 1 year appointment for me, but everything will have been online once the year comes to an end. So I do still live in New York. I live in the Hudson Valley with my wife. And, we love it here very much, but we did, or at least I expected that we would go to California. So I miss California, and I lived there for 8 years. And before I moved and left California, I did extensive field work in Argentina and Chile. And I studied the political economy of defense industry reform. And so I studied and did interviews with civilian and military elites and party leaders and bureaucrats. And it was really, really interesting and provocative, and it was very engaging, and I loved it very much. And so for me, a course like this is interesting because we get into the motivations of voters and parties, the reasons that actors make the choices they make, the incentives and the potential for benefit or for cost that they take into consideration when they act. And so for me, I see that in practice and in theory. And so I love this stuff very, very much. Although I'm not a behavioralist or a behaviorist, as they would say, I study political economy and interest groups. The material is familiar to me, and I've taken these courses and covered this material in the past. And so I look forward to learning a great deal from you all. And I know that at UC Merced, there's a real interest and emphasis on behavior in political psychology. And so we will do our best to draw on those insights and that interest and that enthusiasm and that energy in the department as we do this course. And so I look forward to learning from you all in hearing about your work and your interests as you bring this into the course and as you figure out what you like and as you illuminate the material with your own insights. And I'll tell you that I always learn as much, if not more, from students as I do from the material in the course, because everyone brings their original experience to the table. And it's when you put that together with what you learn and what you read about that you create new knowledge. And so, be enthusiastic and excited about this, because even though we're under difficult circumstances, we still have a good chance to make the most of it and to channel our energy and our enthusiasm. So we've got a few minutes left, and I'd love to hear from as many of you who feel comfortable, who want to say hello and talk about your interests as possible. So I'll shut up now, and I'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear from you. Does anyone want to say hi?
I'll say hi. Hi, my name is Claudia. I live in a really small town in Northern California that has like 3,000 people, and we're known for our frog jumping jubilee. It was recently covered on Netflix in like a show. I'm a political science major. This is my second semester here at Merced. I'm a transfer student. And yeah, that's about it.
Oh, it's so great to meet you, Claudia. And I'm so happy to hear that there's a frog jumping contest. Is that right?
Yeah, so we draw about 40,000 people over the course of 4 days. And we actually, our elementary through high school students get 2 days off because it also involves like livestock auctions and like carnival rides and all that kind of stuff. So,
Wow, that's fantastic. That sounds great. Jacqueline, I think Jacqueline had her hand up. Is that right? Maybe. Okay, so Gustavo.
How's everybody doing? My name is Gustavo. I'm from East Palo Alto in the Bay Area, and I'm a poli-sci major, third year at UC Merced. And for the most part, I just like politics, and I'm actually really excited today because Joe Biden's first day as president. So it's really cool to see change in person.
Yeah, right on. I also watched the inaugural proceedings, as they call it. It was so stately and there was so much pomp and circumstance. You just kind of get excited about it. Great. It's so good to have you, Gustavo. Christopher Moreno, do you want to say hello?
Yeah, I can say hello. I'm Christopher Moreno, #2. I'll show my face later on when I look good. But anyways, I'm a poli-sci major as well. Like Claudia, I'm a transfer student, so this is my second semester at UC Merced, which sucks because I'll be doing just 1 year in person. So let's see how that goes. Besides that, I'm really excited to take your course. Everything that you mentioned sounds really interesting, and I look forward to learning from you.
Oh, great. Well, it's so good to have you, Christopher. And really, my heart goes out to you about the how your time in person got short circuited. I'm sure that there are many of you who feel that way, and it is difficult. We'll make the most of it, right? We'll try to keep the energy up and make the most of it. But it's so great to have you, and I look forward to the course too. Harjis, do you want to say
Okay,
hi?
not bad.
Hi, I'm Harjis. I'm a third year political science major as well. And actually, a fun fact is the town I'm from, it's super small, Central Valley, San Joaquin County. But a Supreme Court justice came here and they kind of shot somebody. And it was like a big Supreme Court case that I learned about just last semester. So that was kind of exciting. But yeah, that's about it.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's a very interesting story.
Yeah, it's because it's a super small town. Like I didn't even know about it until we moved here, so it was kind of exciting to know that a Supreme Court justice actually came here once.
Totally, and got shot.
Yeah. Well, his body got shot.
If you don't mind
shot
me
him.
asking,
Yeah, what's up?
sorry, if you don't mind me asking, what town are you from?
I'm from Lathrop, California. It's a small town near Stockton, Manteca area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like an hour and a half from there. Like I'm kind of towards like Yosemite, and Sonora area.
Is that near like Oakdale?
Yeah, I'm like 40 minutes from Oakdale.
Okay.
I just small town rep.
Cool. I'm here for it. You know, I myself am from a small town. Well, sort of. I mean, small area, rural Nebraska. I mean, it's pretty underdeveloped, but I'm here for it. You know, I can relate to that. And my family farms, so grew up working on the farm. Brittany, do you want to comment? Say hi.
Yeah, hi everybody. I just want to introduce myself. I'm Brittany Wilson. I'm a fourth year. I'm a double major. My first major was econ and business management, and then I realized how much political science really affects the economy. So then I decided to double major in poli sci, and that's what brought me here. But I just think all the conversations really interesting. I'm from LA, so not such a small town, but the particular city in LA I'm from is called Whittier, and that's like where Nixon's from. So, pros, he studied the EPA, cons, Watergate, but a lot of just interesting history in California. So,
Totally.
hi everyone.
Hi, Brittany. It's so good to have you. I remember Whittier. That's sort of near Riverside. Yeah. Yeah.
Close.
Cool. Cool. It's so good to have you. Christopher Moreno. I think that might be Christopher Moreno 1. You want to say hello?
Yeah, I'll try to make it short and sweet. I'm a reinstated senior at UC Merced. I came back in summer of 20. My time at the UC was 10, 11. And then I made my way back through the community college. And I wanted to say something because me and Claudia had a class at Modesto Junior College, and I got her in another class. So I'm like real excited this semester.
Right on. It's always good to have familiar faces and people maybe you worked with. And in political science, many of us have had classes together, and many of you have a set of interests that sort of overlap. And so there's a lot that you've learned from each other. And those of you who are new around here, we have as much to learn from you too, though. And so it's going to be a great semester. This class has a lot of interest, and I'm not surprised by that at all, given the emphasis on political psychology and behavior at Merced. So we're in really good shape here. And I just want to let you all know that if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, just let me know. I have no issue trying to change that, because I'm not great with names, and sometimes I just say the wrong pronunciation over and over, and no one tells me, and I feel terrible. So let's see. It looks like we've pretty much taken care of everything, and I think Brittany has her hand up again. Brittany, do you want to make a comment?
I just forgot to take it down, if I'm being honest, but that's it.
No worries, no worries. So listen, everybody, this was a great start, and I'm so happy that you're here with us in taking this course this semester. I look forward to Friday, where we'll begin our substantive discussion and really begin to get into the questions and the key issues in comparative political behavior. So let's remain focused and excited. And I will have office hours today, and you can join me for those here in a few minutes. You'll find the link in announcements on CAT courses, but you're certainly not required to. And I'll be available again on Friday. But I will see you on Friday, and thanks again for being here, and I'll see you then. Take it easy.
All right, have a great day. Thank you.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Professor. Are you
Thank
going to
you.
have an American course over the summer, maybe?
Not at this moment. I mean, I'm open to it if they want to give me one, but not at this moment.
Yeah, I gotta take either that or another comparative course, and I'm trying to finish over the summer.
Yeah, I hear you.
So if you do get one, shoot me an email,
For
please.
sure. I'd be happy to. I hope, I'm sure you'll get, something, or you'll get what you need, but yeah, I'll let you know. Have a good one. Hey, what's up?
What up, Professor? How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. How was your holiday?
It's very, very eventful. Yeah.
Nice. Good
Yeah.
events or bad? I hope good.
Good events. Good events. Yeah. How was yours?
Pretty good. We did the flooring in our house, so that took 2 weeks of my holiday.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a good experience though. But I
Yeah.
can't look at carpet the same way anymore.
No. And when you can't really leave home, it sort of makes it challenging, I'm sure.
Yeah. So I was wondering how this class is going to be structured. Is it going to be similar to your other two, where it's going to be like the slides and then discussions kind of like put in between?
Um, well, sort of, yeah. The truth is that there might be more content and less discussion, just because and understandably, and the discussion is sort of inconsistent, because some weeks, we're busier, and other weeks we're less busy, and it is, after all, a lecture. And so, as much as I like to incorporate student input, sometimes it creates too many dull moments. And so I think that what I'll probably do this semester is create or leave open spaces for student input, but not actually build it in necessarily. If we go into discussion, great. But if not, we'll just have content. So, I'm just kind of figuring things out as we go, and I think that might be a better model.
Yeah, makes sense. I was happy to see on the syllabus that you actually got a final time this semester.
I know, it's
Progress.
amazing. I don't know what I did to deserve that, but I made sure that there were final exam slots. So
Yeah, that's the first thing I went to see on the syllabus was like, did he get a final?
yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So I was wondering, I'm just curious, if assuming this semester ends and we move on to next one and it's in person as it's saying, would you then move down to Merced, or is it like Skidmore where it's just a 1 year commitment?
It's a 1 year commitment. I mean,
Okay.
theoretically, I could apply again, and if it went well and students had a good experience, I would be, I'd be the inside candidate, as it's called. But it's sort of a question mark, because it is a 1 year appointment, and I would love to have that opportunity, but there are some considerations on my end too, regarding sort of, um, where I want to set down, so to speak, and
hmm
because they're 1 year appointments, you sort of have to reapply every year,
hmm
and so it sort of makes it hard to try to kind of draw it out. But I would love to be able to continue teaching. Of course, that would be my, if I could design it my way, that would be the way it would be. But yeah, so
Yeah, makes sense. It's just one of those things where it's like you meet someone online and you never get to like shake their hand as an example. It's just something I personally think of.
well, I've been thinking about that too. And one thing that's difficult is meeting students and having conversations with them, and learning that there's this entire person, with all these interests and this background and this physical presence, who you never got to meet, right? And
Mhm.
who you never got a chance to pass in the hall, or interact with in class, or invite to a talk. That element is gone, and it's just, it makes it hard, and it's been especially hard for me because I'm having a difficult time getting the materials that I need because we don't have the physical library and because the
Yep.
services are basically hamstrung.
Yeah.
I don't have access to much at all. You know, it's hard to get everything I need to do my research, and luckily we've been able to get what we need for the course for the most part, but
Hmm.
there's just a whole host of things that just get sacrificed in this kind of a circumstance, you know.
Yeah. And then how did your research paper go? I remember you were stressing about that around the same time we were stressing
Oh
about
yeah,
our
well,
finals.
it really came together, and I'm well, I needed extra time, but it really came together, and I'm totally confident that they'll accept it for publication. So, which is really a good thing, and so it's exciting because it's a good journal, and I was very excited to learn that although I initially was pitching the paper as sort of something for a particular literature, that there's a whole other literature that would be interested as well. And so I was able to grow the audience considerably through the feedback that I got. And so there were a number of changes that were demanding that really took a lot of time, but it was a
Mhm.
great experience to make the revisions, and it'll be really exciting and like gratifying when it is in print and finally accepted. So which will take a while, but it'll be published online first. So
Mhm.
which could be, you know, it could be published online in 9 months or a year, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm happy that went well, and I appreciate you passing down that extra time you got for that onto us for that paper.
Of
There's
course.
no way, because that weekend was so hectic between both the papers being due that there was no way I would have gotten them both done by the deadline.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would be a hypocrite if I didn't acknowledge that there are just a lot of realities that are difficult to account for. And as much as I do think discipline counts, I ultimately care more about creating the best product, as long as it gets done, right? Like I said in
Yeah,
class, like unfortunately being flexible sometimes sacrifices some of the accountability that students didn't know they needed. You
yeah.
know? And so like under a pandemic, like, yeah, we're more flexible, but frankly, more students are not completing stuff. So it's sort of difficult, you know, like, but yeah, you know, what am I gonna do? Not give you a little more time. And I felt so terrible about the way that well, me and you guys, mainly you guys, got shortchanged not having a teaching assistant, that I couldn't do anything but give you more time, you know. So
Yeah. Did
it
you
was
get
a
one for this?
I did, yeah. I have a
Okay.
teaching assistant for all 3 classes.
Nice.
So they actually gave me one for a class that I wasn't originally scheduled to have assistants for. So they kept their word, which I'm very happy about.
Hey, that's great.
So
And then you, I'm sorry.
no, I was just yeah.
Yeah. No, you touched on changes that were needed for you between the semesters. So I'm just curious if there's changes that, I could make because I was in both your classes last semester. So I'm just curious, is there anything in particular that is different that I should do differently? Obviously, you said there's less discussion, so obviously fewer questions and fewer opportunities for conversation. So do you think there's anything to do differently between the two semesters in terms of the way I approach work
You're doing
and
a great job.
oh,
I would just encourage you to continue to complete the reading on a timely basis like you do, and just to continue to, you know, I think that one effective way to contribute like you already do is to just make reference to the readings. um, I wouldn't change anything. Do it, just keep doing everything that you're doing. You know, you're doing a great job. There's nothing wrong. It's not broke, don't fix it, right? I mean, sure, if you want more focused feedback and you're concerned about, well, how do I get better? There's always more that can be done. I think that one area you could improve a little bit is for you individually.
mhm.
I seem to remember that with your papers, the ideas were well developed, but I always wondered if there could be a little more evidence, or if you could if you could strengthen the empirical component.
Mhm.
So like the information that you draw on or that you point to support your claims, right? And so that's something that you can do in any assignment, right? The response paper incorporating more of the material from the reading as empirical support for your claim, right? Engaging more
Mhm.
fully or more robustly with an article,
Yeah.
and so on, right? Like that's something that I think that you could do better.
Oh.
But you're a good student and you're doing very well. And so
Mhm.
when I say that, you know, what you could do better, it's not how do I get to the next level? I think that you're performing as well as we should expect a student to perform. But in terms of your personal growth, that's one area where you could grow, right? So you're a
Mhm.
great student, but to be a great or a better scholar, you'd want to focus on that empirical component more. You've got great ideas, but try to uh, shore up the empirical foundation a little bit more, right?
Mhm.
A stronger or a more robust analysis of an article or of the information that you draw on. That's I think what you could do um, a little better. But
Okay.
it's kind of like
No.
it's really more of like what I think would make you a more effective scholar, right? And
Mhm.
you're a great student.
Mhm. Yeah, you don't have to code it in compliments. I asked for the feedback. So I appreciate you saying those things, and I know you genuinely mean them. But I also appreciate you giving me honest feedback, because especially because you read two of my papers last semester, you're going to read another one plus the response paper this semester. So yeah, my goal is to obviously do better than last semester and be that better scholar and do these things at a higher level than I did previously. Because if I'm not doing that, what's the point of 4 years of college if I'm not going to improve each and every year and each every semester?
Agree, yeah. And these are
Mhm.
skills that you'll use everywhere, right? And
Yeah.
you know, a response paper, an analytic essay, that's a very general skill, right? That will come in hand when you write an email or write a memo or speak to a group.
Mhm.
Communicating in a succinct and articulate and effective way is vitally important. And so, you know, we do that in the class as much as we can. And I think that we're moving away from some of the more rigorous, like comparative, uh, the methodological context that I couched a lot of what we did in. We'll still do that, but we're not going to be doing
Okay.
readings on methods this semester. And I think that we'll focus a little bit more on substantive questions, but we'll still use those methods in the lectures.
Yeah. I think that's probably for the best because I remember the lectures and the readings I had the most trouble with are the ones that were the methodology ones. And generally, I understand and acknowledge the necessity of it, but it's also really hard to apply without those substantive examples at the particular time of the reading.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought about that, and you know, it's just a consideration. Uh, anyway, I
Yeah.
think I need to run and go and
Oh,
post the
sorry.
hours. No, it's okay. Don't worry. It's
No, like you said, there. I just wanted to shoot the breeze with the professor.
oh no, it's great. I just realized that we're still recording. It's fine.
Whatever.
Who cares? It's just
Like,
general feedback.
yeah,
Any student who would want to know, well, what could I do better? I would have, you know, I would have honest comments for them too. But
yeah.
um,